Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this great world of ours. Today is June 22nd, 2026, and today is day 11 of my video challenge. Well, as you can tell, I've started off with something different than the Boom Goes the Dynamite. I think that got me started, and I'm grateful for it. And it's time to move on to something that feels a little more in alignment and authentic with myself. And so I'm trying this out. This is actually something taken from Art Bell in his Coast to Coast AM radio show. And I came across that actually very late. Um, Basically, when he was just almost at the end of it and handing it over to someone else. And yeah, it's one of those great disappointments in life. He'd been doing that radio show for over 2 decades at that point, and one of my coworkers happened to mention it to me, and I said, "What?" And he was like, "You don't know about Coast to Coast AM?" And as he told me about it, I was just like, "Oh my God, where have I been for the last 20 years?" Um, yeah, I would have loved to have listened to that show on an AM, you know, through the 80s and 90s. Um, but I went, I've listened to it. I've listened to him for as long as he was still on the channel, and I went back and I listened to some of the older ones, and I just loved his really authentic and personable style. Um, he just was not trying to be anyone other than himself, even when that didn't sit well with um, the people he was interviewing. And sometimes he would even just, if he really did not feel the person he was interviewing was credible, if he thought they were just spinning a yarn. I mean, his show was about um, all kinds of strange and unusual stories, including things like aliens and the paranormal and just strange weather events and just the unexplained. He was a man who was fascinated by the unexplained things in our world, and and he was one of those rare individuals who actually went out and pursued the things he was truly passionate about. He got his start in the Air Force as a radio man. So he worked at radio stations for the Air Force all over the world. I think in the Philippines in the 70s. Um, putting together and maintaining the radio equipment, as well as I believe he was probably doing radio broadcasts, although they were military radio broadcasts. They weren't you know for civilian consumption. But he took all of that knowledge and enthusiasm and worked for commercial radio when he got out of the military, and then continued to build that momentum into creating his own radio show. And for those of you who aren't really familiar with radio technology, first of all, it's what Wi-Fi is. All wireless is radio technology, right? We use a portion of the electromagnetic spectrum, of which light is part of the electromagnetic spectrum. It's a thin band of it. X-rays, microwaves, gamma rays, infrared, all of that kind of stuff. And part of that spectrum is what we call the radio wave frequency. A lot of people think that the radio was invented by Marconi. Actually, it was invented by Nikola Tesla, or it was discovered. I want to say it was discovered. Nikola Tesla discovered that radio frequency band and how to work with it. He was the first person who came up with a radio device. Now, he didn't come up with the first radio device to transmit and receive audio. That was Marconi. But what Nikola Tesla did was when he realized, as he was playing around with wireless electricity, which is what radio waves are, wireless electricity, he discovered this frequency that he could use to send and receive signals. And what he did with the signals is he actually came up with the first radio controlled boat. So he had a little device where he moved the thing around, and on this little boat it steered the rudder. It steered the rudder like this. And Marconi saw that, and this is documented. This is actually documented. This is one of those things where history gets it wrong and nobody really cares enough to correct the history, because it was written about by a newspaper reporter. He saw the demonstration, he described what was going on, and this predates anything Marconi did, right? Marconi saw that and asked Tesla, "Are you going to do anything with this?" Tesla said, "No, I'm too busy pursuing my wireless power initiative." And he gave Marconi, he said, "Yeah, run with it. I just, I don't have time, run with it." And so then Marconi took that information and developed it into the ability to transmit audio and then receive it. And that's what we call the radio now. But that was really just the audio application of those radio waves. You can use it for a remote control device like Tesla did, or sending data packets like we do now with our cell phones and our wireless infrastructure, right? Anyway, so AM, which is amplitude modulation, that was used in the very early days of radio. The sound quality isn't as good, and it has it is far more likely to be affected by weather. So if there's lightning storms and things like that, which are very common in the United States. I don't really know how common that kind of lightning and thunderstorms are around the rest of the world, but in America, in the huge middle portion of America, we have lots and lots of severe weather, lightning storms, thunder, all that kind of stuff. So AM, while it was really good in transmitting over very long distances, so that was important in the early days, the downside was that the audio quality wasn't very good, and it was affected by the weather. And then eventually they created FM, which is frequency modulation. So they're modulating the frequency, not the amplitude. The amplitude is, let's see, the size of the wave, right? How big the wave goes. So the larger the amplitude, the slower the frequency. And then the smaller the amplitude, the faster the frequency. So it goes very fast, right? So FM and your the channels are based on the modulation of the frequency versus the modulation of the size of the wave, right? So he was in the desert. He started up in his little trailer in the desert with his very tall antenna and I think like a 5,000 watt, or maybe it was a 50,000 watt transmitting tower. And he just built a name for himself until he became syndicated. So when he becomes syndicated, then they take your feed and they run it through relays across America, because America spans 4 time zones. 5, 6 actually, if you count Alaska and Hawaii, or maybe more than that, right? But yeah, and he just really he really loved what he did, and that's why I love his stuff. And we always want to try and be original. Like I want to try and be original, although there's an old saying that there's nothing new under the sun. Uh, and so I think in memory of Art Bell, I would like to start saying my new opening line. And he said it so well with such ease and enthusiasm. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. He said across this great land of ours, because he was speaking really to America, and Canada, right, and Mexico, honestly, which we're all part of the contiguous North American continent, right? So that was appropriate. But this is the internet, and we have to change our ways of thinking. Whether we fully realize it or not, we are a global civilization now. We have become a global civilization. We can talk to anybody in the world easily and effortlessly, constantly. It's not even like sending a letter or an email or making a special call. It's just on demand. I can speak to just about anybody in any country, anywhere. So we are a global civilization. I think that's actually a good thing. I believe that allows us to collaborate more and to realize that despite the differences, the beautiful differences in our culture, I want to see a global civilization that also maintains identity, um, cultural identity. I think that's really important because those different cultures bring so many different ways of thinking. But yeah, it allows us to all realize how, even though we have all these differences, we're all um, also very similar. And I think that's a beautiful thing. I'm getting ready today to uh, get my paperwork ready to renew um, my passport. It's coming up. It's going to expire pretty soon here. And I was just looking at my passport. American passports are good for 10 years, and I was looking at it, and it's completely blank. Um, so when I quit my life in California back in the end of 2015, and I renewed my passport in the summer of 2016. I haven't been anywhere. I haven't been anywhere. I've done some traveling within the U.S., but I haven't traveled internationally in 10 years, which is very, very sad. That's the this will be the first time that I have a passport that has gone completely unused. I got my first passport. Well, the first time I traveled internationally, I didn't need a passport because I had my military ID, which serves as a passport in effect. The first foreign country I went to was Korea. Um, and I was there for 18 months. And it was such an eye opening experience. It just was this beautiful awakening to all these different ways of being and doing things um, and language isn't just different words for the same thing. Language really is a complete, each language represents a completely different way of thinking. You cannot think the same thoughts from one language to another. You can only, if you know both languages well enough, you can translate them to be an approximation, but it's never quite exactly the same. And that's really important because that gives us different ways of thinking about the world that one language or even just a few languages cannot provide. So when we have this plethora of languages, you have the ability to think about this very complex existence of ours and in a myriad of ways. Um, and I think that's important because of the whole, like the existence is just so large. one perspective only sees a tiny portion of it, right? It's kind of like the Indian story about the five men and the five blind men and the elephant. And there's five blind men and they're all touching different parts of the elephant. And the one who's touching the tail thinks that it's a rope, and the one that's touching the leg thinks it's a tree. The one that's sort of patting the side of the elephant thinks he's touching a wall. The one that's holding on to the ear says, no, this is a palm leaf. The one touching the snout, the nose of the elephant, thinks that it's a snake. And the point is that there are some things that are just too large for any one way of thinking to encompass. And the best we can do is get bits of it from different points of view and try and piece them together into a larger view. It's like a jigsaw puzzle, right? All of those different ways of experiencing that elephant from the blind men, and the blindness is just a metaphor for our ignorance. And we take those bits of data and put them together, and we start to say, well, maybe this isn't these five different things. Maybe it's something bigger than that, right? That's my take on religion and spirituality, is that every form of religion and spirituality that has ever come up is a piece of the puzzle. It's one small piece of the puzzle, and if we take them all together and start to think about them in total, we can start to have a better idea of what that might be. And this is the same with Earth and the existence and life on Earth. There's just different ways of thinking about things. When I lived in Germany and I was doing a study abroad to learn German, and I realized how the English language is very focused on time. It's obsessed with time. The past, the present, the future. We have so many different ways to represent that in our language, and it's almost central to the English language. Is kind of like the time coordinate. When is it happening? When did it happen? And then you can have frames of reference where you're talking about the past, but it's in the mode of present continuous. And so there's just layers of time built into the English language. And I don't know where we get that, but it wasn't really that way with German. And I spoke with other international students, and they didn't seem to have that focus either. And so that was very eye-opening for me as a psychologist and philosopher and thinker, about how the English language is really tightly focused on time. But yeah, so here I am, getting ready to renew my passport and renew my outlook on life. And so, I love that opening line from Art Bell. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be across this great world of ours. It puts me in the right frame of mind. I want to try and create something new for my life in this next 10 years of mine. And I want it to be open, authentic, and international, and global. If I suddenly came into a great amount of money, I would just travel. I would travel. I would travel very lightly. I would just take the clothes that I needed and a little backpack with a laptop and a camera and maybe a book or two, and I would just travel around into different countries that I've never been to that I've always wanted to explore. And I would just create videos every day about what I experienced in those towns. I would, go to the museums, take the walking tours, um, eat the food. I mean, one of the best ways to learn about a people is to eat their food. It tells you a lot about who they are. And unfortunately, I've been one of those kind of people that I, I've never, met a food I didn't want to eat. So I'm very willing to try, even though sometimes I'm a little nervous. I'm still like, okay, I'll eat it. If somebody else is eating it, that means I can eat it. And yeah, that's what I would do. I would just enjoy continuing to learn about this great world of ours around me. And so I think my new opening is part of that, setting that intention to create something new for myself. And hopefully eventually meet more of you out there as well, wherever you may be in this great world of ours. So, and on that note, I'm going to leave it. If you're still with me, thank you very much. I appreciate you. You are more important than you know and more loved than you can imagine. Take care, and I look forward to seeing you tomorrow.